Greetings, fellow deep thinkers, and thank you for tapping in with me, Dr. Moe. I am so excited to have this conversation with you all today, as it is one that many of us have heard this before, but we never really, sometimes we may not stop and go to the surface of what exactly is really going on. And the goal of today's conversation is to do that deep dive with it and to see why people ask stupid questions. What is the background of stupid questions? What is the psychology behind the act of asking stupid questions? What defines something as being a stupid question? And what goes on inside of ourselves when we're looking at or taking in and internalizing and reflecting on the question that someone has with us, and having an understanding of what goes on the inside when we're processing what's happening. And so what you can expect by the end of today's session is to have an understanding of what exactly are the stupid questions, why do people ask stupid questions, and what's going on inside of them as well as ourselves when that's happening. And the hopes is that we have just a stronger and a deeper understanding of those sense of questions in general, and to understand how and why we process what we process when we come across those questions. So shout out to all of you all who are already subscribed here to this frequency on this channel. If you haven't already, if you enjoyed this conversation, definitely look into tapping in further and joining this village here. So without further ado, we are about to get it popping. So in school and other organizations, you may have heard the saying, there's no such thing as a stupid question. But is it really? Is it really? I want you all to let me know down below in the comments, like, do you feel that there is a such thing as a stupid question? Because you may have also heard the saying of common sense is not so common. And so many of us may have grew up hearing these sayings in a way where, it may have felt a little like nefarious, or it was just looking at everything from like this negative perspective. But what if I told you that there's another way that we can look at stupid questions and why stupid questions are asked? And have you ever stopped and asked yourself if maybe sometimes you've asked a question to someone else who it appeared to be stupid to them? And so as we're getting into and breaking this down, let's first start out with stupid question. Let's break that down. So the definition of what exactly is a stupid question, and I actually wrote it down inside of my notes, and I want to read it exactly from my notes so I don't miss any of the keywords from the definition. Okay. So the definition of stupid is the sense of lacking intelligence, common sense, being illogical or nonsensical, or inconsiderate. So even when we look at the definition of stupid, it makes you question, is there really a universal definition of it? If we were to look at the definition of stupid, is there really a universal definition of stupid? Because if we're looking at lacking intelligence, well, what level of intelligence is needed? Lacking common sense, is everything really common? And we're going to get into that in a second as we get deeper into the conversation. As I said, these are deep dive conversations. But going back to that, common sense, what really makes something common? Okay. Being illogical or inconsiderate. And I could see that being illogical, nonsensical, basically you're not taking the time, like the question or something is when something is stupid, because I'm not even looking at stupid questions. It's just stupid in general of it's not something that's thought through. Okay. But then it causes us to stop and say, well, what really defines something being thought through? What really defines something being thought through? So are there levels to stupid? I would love to hear you all's perspective of that. Are there levels to stupid? Something to think about. So this causes us to stop ourselves and ask, everyone who asks a question or a stupid question, a dumb question, are they really dumb or are they really stupid? Or are they just ignorant to that piece of information, of something that could be considered, it's normal to you, it's common to you, but is it common to them is the question that we want to ask ourselves. And that then goes into just the aspect, before we even get into that, because that's also in the body of today's conversation. But why do people ask questions to begin with? We have to stop ourselves and ask that. The why. Why do we ask questions? One of the reasons why we ask questions is just because we want to know something, because we're curious, because we want more information on it. Sometimes people ask questions just to snoop or spy, but that still goes into their curious nature. You have some people who ask questions as a way to see how they can learn a situation, to manipulate it. So questions basically can be asked for anything as a way to gather information. So whether someone is gathering information for their own self, or they're gathering information for someone else, whether they're gathering information for a benefit, or if they're gathering information for nefarious reasons, we never know really. So one of the biggest pieces for when it comes to internalizing the questions that people ask us and how we take those questions and go through the actual process of it, it comes to the aspect of realizing that we are all a different frequency. We've all had different experiences. We've had different upbringings, different parents, different hometowns, different friends, different experiences, different teachings. So everything that we have encountered throughout life have helped with the development of who we are today. Not everyone has the same development. Everyone that we encounter, they weren't in all the same places that you were in. So with us understanding that everyone that we encounter, like we all have had different experiences, it causes us to stop and ask ourselves, well, what frequency am I on and what frequency are they on? And it could be that what is common to you is not so common to them. And when we stop and think about that, that's actually really big. A lot of times we say common sense is not so common, and that is very true. And it's not meant to be true in a way where someone is trying to insult someone's intelligence. It's in a way of truly understanding that what is normal to someone in Alaska is going to be different for someone who's living in Colombia or Ghana or England or Florida. There's different experiences. So they're going to have experiences that people who've never been around snow may never have. So if someone who's around snow their entire life and they move to Alaska and now they have snow, of course they're going to ask questions. And to someone who's lived in the snow their whole life, that can in some way seem like a stupid question, because why are you asking me this question right now? It's snow. Of course you do this. Of course you do that. It's a simple question, but it's not always as simple as what we feel. And how we handle those questions, how we internalize those questions, show us what our development of within our subconscious is. It shows us how we judge different situations when we look at our amygdala. Now that goes even further into the scientific subconscious, and I'm not going to leave you hanging. We are going to talk about that, but I want to make sure that we set the tone for fully understanding what exactly is going on when these questions are asked and why these questions are asked and the emphasis behind the situation. And the goal is to help us have a better understanding when these questions are asked to us. So if you stop yourself and think on when was the last time someone asked you a dumb question, stop and analyze, how did you feel? Because we're going to get into that in today's conversation of the process, but I want you to stop and think about it first. How did you feel when they asked you this question? How did you look at them? Did you judge them? Did you question them? Did it make you side-eye them? Did you just give them the answer? What was the thought that went through your mind when you heard that question? Because there's a reason why we do that as we process it. Our brain is always processing information, and it's releasing it from, well, we have the information that's stored in our subconscious, and the subconscious is broken down into three different parts of the id, the superego, and the ego. And they all have different parts. And so when it comes down to the aspect of us processing this information, how we respond and how we define something as being stupid and how we define something as being logical, it all goes down to how we've stored that information within our prefrontal. So before I even get ahead of myself, because I find myself getting ahead of myself in this conversation right now, because there's so many different layers to the process of what gets us to ask questions. And that's something that we want to ask ourselves as well. Like, why do I ask questions? When I ask questions, what's the background of it? And it makes me think of with children, you know, many people say, oh, the terrible twos and all that. And once children start, you know, being able to talk, how they ask so many questions. And a big reason for that is because, especially before the age of 5, that's where your subconscious is developed by the age of 5. And you have to realize, and I said this in the last session on the aspect of change, but we have to realize that most of who we are today, we're operating off of an operating system that was created and developed and programmed before a time that we can remember. So children are asking questions, and although I know parents get tired of it, of like, oh my gosh, does this child ever stop? But when they're asking you these questions, it's like you're helping them build their subconscious. You're helping them build their bank of information. And so there are times when we're going to come across people who they didn't have that bank of information available to them. And that's why it can be dangerous to have television raising your children. It can be dangerous of having tablets raising our children, because all of those things that they're taking in and processing, they're internalizing it. Whether it's verbal communication, visual communication, physical communication, they're still taking and internalizing it, and they're developing their subconscious from it. So our understanding who we are, the knowledge that we have now, the foundation of it was created by the age of 5. Now, yes, our experiences after that added on to that knowledge, and sometimes the new information comes in and change out the old information that we once knew. But that takes a certain level of consciousness to happen. And if one is not conscious enough to ask those questions and dive deeper, they can lay dormant. Those memories, those actions, those thought processes, they lay dormant until we recall them back up. And a lot of times when it comes to the stupid questions, honey, it's calling it back up. Okay, it's calling it back up. And we're going to talk about that in a second. All right, so let's start getting into what goes through our brain when someone asks us a stupid question. Okay, so remember, our subconscious is split up into 3 different parts. We have our id, which is the foundational instinctual space, and it goes deep. Then we have our superego. We're going to talk about that in a second on the role of the superego. And then we have our ego. Okay. And so what happens in this process is that our brain takes in the information of the question and it goes to our amygdala. And our amygdala kind of takes it in and it makes a judgment on what type of emotion should I have against this? Should I be judgmental? Should I be excited that they're asking me this question? Should I be questioning? How should I feel with them asking this question? So that's the first part of where the judgment comes in, okay? And that judgment is only able to be processed through what has been stored with our prefrontal cortex. Our prefrontal cortex is where all of this information is stored inside of ourselves that has been developed from the time of us being born up until now. It lets us know how to feel, what to do, how to respond, because our prefrontal cortex wants to understand what is really happening, why it's happening, and what's really going on. And so the strength of that process, it goes through the development of our superego. Because when it comes to our prefrontal cortex, this is where we're able to either bring in the emotion of, the characteristic of empathy. So if you don't have empathy stored away in you when it comes to understanding when someone asks a question, then you're going to have a feeling of judgment towards their question. That will be the response that you have. So our connection to different social constructs is stored in this space. Now, the thing with the superego can sometimes be programmed in a way that's not really beneficial for us. And that's where like our old beliefs and things of that nature are. So if we haven't addressed our old beliefs, if we haven't addressed what got us to be where we're at now, we could be holding on to some old beliefs, some old subconscious feelings or from the superego that no longer resonate with us. So in this space, our superego, it looks at the situation. Well, what's morally correct? Is it right for me to answer this question? Should I answer it? Or is this person going to be mad at me after? Are they going to judge me? What's going to happen by how I respond to this? Okay. Now, the thing with the superego, it wants to lessen the blow. Okay. Now, the id could be, this is dumb, this is stupid, this is blah, blah, blah. But if your superego was raised on being nice to everyone, your superego may be like, this may be dumb, but it's not nice to tell someone this is a dumb question. I'm just going to answer it. That's what happens with the superego. Unless you redefine, unless you reprogram it, unless you teach something new to that superego on how to process it, that's the flow of what you will go through depending on your upbringing. So just quick think of our superego. Our superego is how we've been socialized. That's where our morals are developed. That's where we're taught what is right, what is wrong, how we're meant to show up in society, what makes a good person, what doesn't make a good person. This is where we take in all that information and make sense of it to create our character, to create what we see as being morals, to create what we feel to be the right thing, integrity, and what's not. And so as you identify that from your upbringing, from all the data that you've had stored inside of you, from your personal understanding and your personal recollection, you're able to make a decision on how you will respond to this person and their question. Now, your superego depends on the knowledge that you've obtained over the years. So your superego, it could give you the warning of this person, they have ill intent, right? Because we understand people can have ill intent when they ask questions. And if you've given your superego permission to be able to say, I really don't want to answer that, or just ignore it, whatever the case is, that goes into the reprogramming of that process and your comfort when it comes to your higher self. And so our biggest thing is stopping and asking ourselves the why. Why, and why, okay? Because from their angle, when they're asking the question, they're accessing their subconscious as well. They're accessing their memory bank as well. They're seeking, am I safe to ask this question? Or is it safe to get this answer? Because the reality is that common sense is not common. And the more we accept that, it also opens us up to be more not even just understanding, but just more open to new information. It makes us more inquisitive for more information because we may be less apt to judge and more open to being understanding of something that is different or something that intrigues us. Because there are times when we have asked a question to someone and they have identified it as a dumb question. Believe it or not, there is someone who you have talked to who has identified what you said to them as being a dumb question. It happened. And simply, all that's really going on the inside of us when we're asking those questions is because something came up and we didn't have the answer. Or it could be that we want to make sure that what we feel is like connected to others. So sometimes people ask questions as a way to fully understand their superego, as a way to understand their morality, as a way to basically compare who they are, their understanding, their foundational self with those within society around them. So a lot of times the questions that they're asking is as a way to make sense of their interconnectedness with the world around them as well. And so it could seem like it's a dumb question, but they're kind of just accessing a foundational piece of themselves. And they're like, let me see how I fit in with all of this. So as you identify the meaning for those questions, it helps you have a better understanding from your perspective of how you can best access it, okay? Because to the person who is asking the question, oftentimes you have to stop and ask yourself, why do you ask questions? And we have to ask ourselves, well, what type of developments have to be going on the inside for me to be comfortable enough to ask a question? Because many of us have been made and raised to feel as if we shouldn't ask questions, as if we should always have the answers to everything. And asking questions makes us look weak. It makes us look too vulnerable. So we want to sit and look at the full picture of what may be going on. So think about what's going through the person's mind before they even ask a question. And that's why we have those sayings of there's no such thing as a dumb question, because they want to make basically a sense of comfort, a space of comfort for individuals who have questions to ask, and making it a safe space of understanding that, you know, you just may not have the information. And the purpose of this conversation is to spread light on that as to why that may happen. Because many of you all may have people come to you and ask you dumb questions. They ask you stupid questions, right? So how can we best handle someone who appears to be asking us dumb questions? Well, the first thing is to be honest with yourself of understanding, how do you view those types of questions? How do you judge questions and things that are different? And it's okay to not answer it if you don't want to. If you don't want to answer something, you don't have to answer it. And so that comes with the reprogramming of your super ego to accept this new reality for you of what you are now okay with, what is now morally correct for you, and what's no longer considered morally correct for you. Now, on the angle of the question asker, or not even just that, like how you view the question asker, I can't tell you what's best for you because we are all on a different journey. But what I can say is that when it comes to building relationships and connectedness, it gives off a positive, good energy when you seek commonality. More commonality and understanding and interconnectedness than separateness. So the more you try to seek a commonality between you and the person and not something that separates you, it creates more of a healthy bond and a healthier understanding of where the question may be coming from. So a lot of times we have to take ourselves out of the question. We have to take ourselves out of, that's a dumb question, according to who? And that comes from us understanding that there have been times when someone has looked at us and a question that we've asked as being dumb, and we just simply just didn't know. And so how can, when we have grace for other people in those situations, we find ourselves in situations with more grace as well. And it's not that judgment is a bad thing. Remember, our prefrontal cortex, it helps us have a better understanding of, okay, of all the information, the storage, how to react to this, to then know what emotion to push out, you know? So that's just the process of the brain in general. The brain is a very powerful computer system. And that actually is connecting to an upcoming video that I have for you all that I'm working on, of how the brain connects as a computer system and utilizing it as that computer system. Making space for dumb questions, it's as if you're making space for the times when you have questions as well in the future and now. And a lot of times we don't ask a lot of questions or be as inquisitive the more judgmental we are of other people who have that as well. And so the more open we are to it and understanding that, you know, this question may be dumb to me, But to them, allow it to be a piece of information to show you like, okay, well, maybe this person didn't have this upbringing, or maybe they didn't have this same experience as me, so I can be able to provide that for them. Now, you do want to understand that there are some people who play the 48 laws of power, and they understand when you play, I hate how it's something of what they say of like playing unintelligent or dumb, like as if you don't know stuff, and it's another way of gaining power. Now, yeah, there are some people who have that mindset, but I'm telling you, that number is not greater than those who do. There's more people with positive, upbeat intentions, or people, not even just upbeat, people who don't mean you harm, than there are people who do. And so when we're able to see that from the angle of, you know, see it as an angle of, you know, maybe this person really just wants to know. But then you also have to ask yourself, what's the question that they're asking? Now, I will always say, assess the situation to make sure that it's safe to answer the question. Because remember, sometimes there are people who are just asking questions because they want to get information on a piece of something. Okay. So it is important for you to have an understanding of, okay, why is this question being asked? Is this question, you know, getting a little too personal? You also have to have a strong understanding of what you are willing to give and what you're not willing to give. And once that is completely understood, it makes the process easier to flow through. And so I am interested to hear from you all from this conversation when it comes to breaking down just what happens with those dumb questions and why people ask dumb questions, and stop and ask yourself like, dang, have I ever asked a dumb question? You know, for example, say you're new with money and, or not money, but new with like money management and investing, right? So you may ask, what's a PIP or what's this, right? So to you, it's new information, but to someone who's been trading and into investments for years, it could be a dumb question to them, because what do you mean, what's a PIP? Like, that's so basic. You get what I'm saying? It's not basic to you because you don't have that understanding. Everyone does not have the same comprehension levels. And that's another piece that has to be remembered as well, that not everyone has the same comprehension levels. Just because they're the same age as you, or they're an adult, or they're in a certain position, or they have a degree even, you know, that doesn't mean that they have the same comprehension levels as you do with the subject or a topic. And so with us having that understanding that, you know, they just may not be at a similar comprehension level as I am right now, it makes it easier for you to be able to understand the basis of their question and where it's coming from. Because we have to realize that we judge people according to our own experiences, according to our own development, our own subconscious beliefs. And so we have to allow ourselves to stop, step back, and attempt to assess it from another perspective, which is the other individual. So as we come to the end of this topic in this video, I like to leave you with just this simple nugget. And that is to remember that we all have started from somewhere. So the next time someone asks you a stupid question or a dumb question, allow yourself to stop and be present with your feelings towards that question. I mean, it may be a little weird though if they're asking you a question and you're just sitting there like processing it. Allow yourself to answer it, but afterwards, sit with yourself and reflect on it. As I say that, my dog just started snoring, and I'm so glad I have my microphone in now. Thank you, Risha, for your gift of the microphone. It's so perfect for my camera, by the way. But afterwards, allow yourself to sit and assess how you felt towards that question. Allow yourself to analyze, how did I feel towards that? Did I judge it? Did I accept it? Did I understand it? To allow yourself to go through a deeper internalization of the entire process. And that will then help you with the development or the redevelopment of your super ego, And as new questions come, as you meet different people, you're able to have a different perspective or a different approach to whatever is going on or whatever the conversation is or whatever the question is. So now that we have reached the end of this video today, I am totally interested in hearing from you all. Were you expecting this topic to go this way? Did anything reveal anything new to you? Is this something that you already knew and you just needed a reminder on it? But then also let me know down below, in what ways are you going to look at the questions that people ask you? Because if you're in a helping profession or a teaching profession, you're going to get questions that it can appear to be very dumb, right? So you could get questions where someone is going to ask you how to find something and you've given it, you've shown it, it could be right there in front of them. But if they don't have the comprehension skills to analyze and look at it and observe it, they're not going to understand it. They're not going to understand the aspect of seeking and searching their surroundings. So you could have skills in conflict management or critical thinking skills, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning. Not everyone has that. So for you, it may be easy to go and look up information. Oh, I need to find this out. Let me search this keyword. Let me do this. Let me do that. And you find the answer. Not everyone was taught how to search. Not everyone learned those skills. And this is coming from someone, I was a previous teacher. Those who know me know I was in education. And one thing I noticed with my students is that way more students are below grade level than those who are on grade level. Most people around us are on around like a 5th grade level. And the older we get, if we're not open to learning new things or being just open-minded in general, we just kind of stay stuck in that space. And so that comes when they share, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. That's where that comes from, because the older you get, the more stuck in your ways you become, right? And so when we have this open mind of understanding that most people can't comprehend, it makes you have a better understanding, or it helps you have a better approach to how you view or understand their perspectives and where they're coming from. It's my hopes that you learned something new from this conversation today. I appreciate you all for tapping into my frequency in this session. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel so that you will not miss any upcoming videos. Make sure you turn on your bell notification, or you just may lose my channel in the midst of the sea of content, because YouTube has made it to where you have to go through extra steps in order to make sure you are getting the notifications for the channels you're subscribed to. So you also would have to go to your settings on your profile and turn on notifications on there as well to make sure that you are receiving notifications for every channel that you are subscribed to. So may you all have an amazing rest of your day, evening, afternoon, whenever you are watching this. Don't forget to drink your water. And we have wrapped up another session, and we're going to go in and turn this faucet off, and I will see you all in the next session. Make sure you check out the previous video that is going to be showing up on your screen for you to check out, that you just may be interested in. And I'll see you in the next one, my loves, my deep thinkers.